James. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. Welcome to the live. Nothing personal. We do it live Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, 8 a.m. right here on YouTube. If you're listening, go to YouTube at NPDS and you'll be live. And here we are talking about LeBron James. Did you stay up for it? How could you not? I spent hours last night, not just watching the game, but after the game, thinking about the game, thinking about life. It really makes you think about mortality. Maybe that's just my age, but I think about life and death and what I'm watching and where it fits in history. When I'm watching events that happen both in politics, in entertainment, in sports, you try to put things in perspective. Watching LeBron James break a record that I grew up and I was an adult since 1984. I was 16 in 1984. Yes, I'm giving away my age. It's Googleable. That's one thing about Google that's right. And I was heading into my junior year in high school. And Kareem gets the scoring record. And Kareem, I was born in Milwaukee, and I lived there until 1974. And I knew Kareem had gotten traded to the Lakers, and I'd been following basketball since 1973 very, very closely. It was my favorite sport of all time. I just loved it. I was watching players and watching games, big Knicks fan. So Kareem has the scoring title all time. And then Kareem keeps playing, and he ends up with 38,000 points. And you do the math, which is what you do in sports all the time. That's all you're doing is math, which is why I love it. You're calculating how many hits do I need to have a 300 average? And I've got 40 games left. How many hits to get 200 hits? How many home runs? How many home runs per at-bat? It's why after opening day in baseball, if someone gets 2 home runs, they're on pace for 322 home runs, right? It's funny that way. But you're doing the math, and we're all doing the math today. Who's going to catch LeBron? But at the time, the math was who's going to catch Kareem, and the answer was nobody. And then you go through the era of Jordan, who loses 2 years to his baseball career, whatever, and he retires. You look at Karl Malone, who snuck up that list and then stopped, and he played till he was unable to go forward. Whatever happened to Karl Malone? You don't see him too often, do you? He resurfaces once in a while. The mailman, he could deliver. So you're looking at the list. Carmelo Anthony's in the top 10, a prolific scorer. His career is done. He will not be able to catch LeBron or Kareem. You're looking at Durant. Then you go to younger players. You're looking at Luka, and everyone's talking about maybe Giannis. People are saying the game is so crazy. There's no defense. People could average 45, 50 points a year, so you don't have to be good for 20 years. You can be good for 10 years. And if you score 4,000 points a season, you don't have to play forever. You could play for 10 years and get 40,000 points. I get all the math. I get all the barbershop arguing about who the greatest is. But when you're watching LeBron play, and you've watched Jordan play, you've watched Kareem play, you've watched Karl Malone play, you've watched Luka play, to me, you have to start thinking a little differently about who the greatest player is of all time. And it's a debate that I want to have with you for 1 minute, just so you can think about it in a slightly different way. I want to get back to what happened last night with LeBron breaking the record because it was awesome. But the biggest thing that's going to be discussed today is he the greatest of all time? Does this end the debate? That's the first thing that people thought of. He hits the fadeaway 14-foot jump shot with 10.9 seconds left in the third period over the Oklahoma City Thunder in a game that they ended up losing on a team that may not make the playoffs. And the first question is not will the FCC fine LeBron, or the Lakers, or the NBA, but that's it. He's now the greatest of all time. But that can't be the end of the debate, because if that were true, then Kareem would have been the greatest of all time up until last night, because Kareem had the all-time scoring championship, right? He held the record since 1984, 38 years. No, Kareem is not the greatest of all time. He was not the greatest of all time yesterday. He's not the greatest of all time today. So clearly, scoring 38,388 points does not make you the greatest of all time. Let's go deeper. 4th all time in assists. We're talking numbers, aren't we? Outstanding. That doesn't make you the greatest player of all time. We can't settle this debate through numbers. It's not analytics. It's not Brad Pitt. It's not Moneyball. You have no ability to have a dispositive argument using just numbers. It's not math. when you have an opinion-based argument, you can use things to buttress your argument, but you will not be able to prevail until you convince an overwhelming majority of the people that the basis of your argument and how you formed your opinion is in agreement with other people, and therefore collectively you can say, okay, now we've come to a decision. There will never be a decision that is correct about who the greatest is of all time. That's what's so cool about the debate, and what could have Coke and I at each other's throats as we are approaching the show today, because there is no answer to the debate. He can say LeBron till he's blue in the face. I can say Jordan till I'm blue in the face, and I can explain why. He can explain why, but I'm not going to use numbers. I'm going to use the word dagger. And when I use the word dagger, Coca rolls his eyes and says, dagger? LeBron James has the most game-winning shots, has the most clutch shots. He's the one you want with the ball at the end of the game. And I say dagger, not because of what it means at the end of the game, but what it means in the middle of the game, what it means with 8 minutes left in the second quarter of the game, what it means in game 2 of the season and game 79 of the season, what it means in the preseason, and what it means when you're in the locker room or on the plane flying to play Michael Jordan. For a player to have a dagger, that means that you've gotten inside the head of your opponent in a way that gives you a competitive advantage that is greater than the difference in your talent level. That means that there is a je ne sais quoi pas. I don't know what. The dagger is that when you are playing against Jordan, you are waiting to lose. Now, you can tell me that he worked his way up, and under Doug Collins, he didn't win championships, and it took a while to get past Detroit and Boston, but then when they did, he won 6 titles in 8 years. The only 2 years he didn't win were when he was out of basketball. You can tell me all that. Then he went to the Wizards and didn't win titles. He needed Pippen. He needed Horace Grant and John Paxson, Jim Paxson. I think it was John Paxson. Jim Paxson. Damn it, Coca. I'm just going to say Paxson or Steve Kerr or whoever his role players were at the particular time. Bill Cartwright. Doesn't matter. Dennis Rodman. The dagger effect is when you are so far greater, both mentally and physically, than anyone else in the league at the time you've played, and anyone else in the league at the time anyone's played. So when you watch LeBron James play, or when you watch Kevin Durant play, or even Steph Curry play, Steph Curry, when he's winning games, he does the good night when he goes in the fetal position, when he hits the 3, that he knows that's the end of the game, meaning the game's over. That's the exact definition of not the dagger. Because the dagger is when you can go, you lose before the game even starts. Now, don't get me wrong. All the Steph Curry lovers out there. His father was a great shooter who you may not know, Del Curry. Steph Curry, unbelievable player. Not in the conversation for GOAT. Because you don't go into a game against Steph Curry and say, we cannot win. When there's a possession where a basket needs to be made, you can give me the numbers on LeBron and clutch. You can give me the numbers on Michael Jordan and clutch. I'm telling you the mentality of teams when the Bulls needed a basket, they got it. It doesn't mean they always got it. It's like going against, I was trying to explain this before the show. It's like going against Pedro Martinez in his prime. He was the greatest pitcher of all time, in my opinion. And you can give me stats on who won more games and all the other numbers you want. But I can tell you the mentality of going against Pedro Martinez when you look at who you're facing. It's not like facing the best pitchers now. It's not like facing the best pitchers I ever watched pitch on my team or the Cy Young Award winners. When you were going against Pedro Martinez, the mentality in the clubhouse going in was, hey, our pitcher has to throw a shutout. And then we have to hope that they take Pedro out in the 12th inning. He's not going to give up runs. And if we absolutely string together in some miracle and score 1 run in the first inning, congratulations, we have a shot. And that doesn't mean that that's the way it was. It means that's the way it felt. And sometimes when things feel a certain way, they are a certain way. You've heard of faking it till you make it? And I'm certainly not going to argue that LeBron James is faking it. LeBron James is faking it until he makes it. I was in Miami. When he took his talents to South Beach, I was with the Marlins. Thanks to John Henry and the transaction where we got front row seats, I was able to watch LeBron James from the Spike Lee seats for his entire Miami career. He did things that makes your jaw drop. He won 2 championships, lost 2 championships. They made it to the finals every year. He goes to Cleveland, wins a title, goes to LA and wins a title. We're talking about an unbelievable career, which lands him as the second greatest player of all time, which is not bupkis. To say that you're the second greatest player who ever played a sport, that's quite something. So I'm thinking about the GOAT debate. I'm thinking about Michael Jordan last night. And I'm thinking about LeBron James and how Jordan handled things, how LeBron handles things, the pressure of being the greatest player playing right now, the pressure of social media, the pressure of microphones, many things that players in the 80s and 90s and 2000s were not truly dealing with. Pressure on athletes today is far greater. Scrutiny on athletes today is far greater. Scrutiny on everybody today is greater. It's greater on your kids. It's greater on yourself. Your employers are looking at you in ways they never did. Your parents are looking at you in ways you never did if you're part of our young audience. We didn't have to think about going to parties and lighting a J and thinking that someone's going to put it on social media and a future employer is going to see it and that could have an impact on our hiring. We didn't worry about anything we were doing other than at that moment making sure that you're not urinating in public so you don't get arrested. That was the biggest concern. Making sure that the chief delivering the weed into your apartment is not an undercover cop, right? Those are the biggest concerns. Now you're watching every step you take. Every move you make has to be thought of in advance because it doesn't go anywhere. You can delete whatever post you want. You can delete whatever tweet you want. You can do anything you want. You can delete photos from your recently deleted photo file. You can use any encrypted platform you want, from WhatsApp to Signal to Viper to Lamborghini, whatever you want to use. The privacy that we have, the ability to do things under the radar, it's gone. So think about the pressure when you're LeBron James, and he manifested that the other day when he said, I just wish I could be normal. I just wish I could go to Starbucks and write LeBron on my cup and not have it be a big deal. I get that. I think we can all appreciate there's a level of fame, not a level of wealth, but a level of fame. Well, I could also argue a level of wealth. As a matter of fact, I will argue that. There is a level of fame and a level of wealth where you get over the mountain of happiness and you are sliding down into the valley of despondency. LeBron James cannot go anywhere, and I'm talking about in the entire world, including the African continent. And I'm making that statement because you remember last summer when I was on the African continent talking about different athletes, Tom Brady could walk around without a problem in Tanzania. I promise you, LeBron James cannot. It's weird. Tiger Woods could too. I was very struck by that when I came back. So LeBron is talking about his fame. He stands up. He goes into the game. And I was despondent. And the reason I was despondent is that I had a pick that said he was not going to get the record because the NBA would want to make this till Thursday when they were playing the Milwaukee Bucks, which is tomorrow, have Kareem in attendance with his old team. It would be amazing to do the ceremony in front of Giannis. I did not realize until before the game started that he was a mortal lock to break the record last night. Why? He had everyone from his family in. Adam Silver was there. I didn't realize that. Did you? When he walked into the arena and they showed him. So if you placed a bet based on my pick of the day from yesterday morning, I hope that you were smart enough to unplace it or at least place the other way so you could at least hedge it. Because I was on the phone with Coca before the game started and we acknowledged the under 32 has no shot. He is breaking the record. So the Lakers are feeding him the ball. And I had not watched the Thunder very much this year. And I was struck not just by how many Williams they have, but they were staying with the Lakers, and it looked like an all-star game to me. There was no defense at all. So I'm thinking about the state of the NBA, and then I started thinking about how much scoring there is and how much scoring Luka would have to do with the fact that there's this much scoring to break a record like this. So I'm doing the math in my head and just thinking about the timing. And meanwhile, I'm watching Oklahoma City when I have them. I've got the Lakers minus 7.5 in a pick. I'm watching them make shots. I'm watching LeBron not pass the ball. I'm watching him be very efficient in his scoring. And I'm saying to myself, it's done. He's breaking the record. So we get to halftime. He only needs 16 points, and you knew it was inevitable. So then it gets to 2 points, and there was an electricity in the air that only comes with history. It doesn't come with a playoff game. It doesn't come with a clinching game 7. There's something about when you're watching something that you know for sure you will never watch again. There's an opportunity to watch another game 7. There's an opportunity to watch another championship or another all-star game, another dunk contest, another spectacular breakaway dunk, another shot that makes you go, wow. But the opportunity to watch LeBron James take this from Kareem, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes there. Kareem and LeBron are not exactly buddies. They did the hug after it was done, and Kareem passed him the torch, and they posed for pictures, and it was all fine and dandy. LeBron said a few nice words about Kareem. Competition between them, and Kareem, as some people can be a little bitter. I would be bitter too if I were an athlete like Kareem. I've always talked to the older athletes I know, from the Andre Dawsons of the world who's not bitter, people who played in different generations, people who did things that were spectacular but did not get remunerated and realized that their career earnings were less than the career earnings of some of the crappiest players in the NBA. And you can say, oh, you're a boomer. Oh, it's the time. Why can't you just be happy for people? Because human nature, there is jealousy in human nature. Obviously, there's envy in human nature. And if you're one of the greatest of all time, you've got the all-time scoring championship record, and it's done, and you've got all these. Kareem is fascinating. We did a segment on him and what he is sort of in our cultural mores. Just a very well-respected, opinionated, smart musician, writer, poet, thinker, civil leader, and he has a problem with people who have a big platform who don't use it for what he thinks it should be used for. So LeBron, they're showing Kareem on TNT, which had the game, of course. They're not discussing how bad the Lakers are, how bad the defense is, how bad the clock management was at the end of that half with everyone. You're supposed to hold the ball to the end of the half and then shoot instead of giving LeBron an extra shot or giving your opposing team an extra shot. Just little fundamentals. Just these two teams stink. Adam Silver's watching this game saying, is this the game we now have? Are we good with a 133-130 game? Are we good with ole? Is that it? So we get to the third quarter, 10 seconds left, a matter of when, not if. Everyone's ready, and I was thinking about when special things happen, all the people in stadium operations are getting the tape ready. They're queuing it up. They know exactly what's going to happen when he breaks the record. The referees have been told in advance. The Oklahoma City Thunder were told in advance by NBA officials who would go into the clubhouse before the game and say, hey, if he gets the record, just know the game will be stopped. We're going to try to keep it to 12 minutes or shorter. They had a time. They have a timeline. And you saw all the people on the court the minute it happened. Photographers had a certain amount of time. There were people sort of directing traffic. First, there's going to be Adam Silver do a presentation. Then we'll have the following pictures, et cetera, et cetera. Adam Silver takes the mic. It's not like he wasn't ready, except he wasn't ready. It was terrible. And then they do pictures. Kareem looks awkward. LeBron takes the mic and talks about everything, but doesn't thank the Heat, doesn't thank the Cavaliers. He talks about the Lakers as being the greatest fans. It's not like LeBron didn't have time to think about what he's going to say, so it's pretty telling about what he mentioned. Is it just recency bias? I would think you'd want to thank people in Cleveland and people in Miami. They were as big a part of who LeBron is than the people in Los Angeles. He didn't mention any teammates. None. Strange. Dwayne Wade was there. Was Draymond Green there, Coca, by the way? Draymond Green is the player who said that no matter what, he was going to go to this game. Even if he had a game, he said, I'm going to skip my Warrior game and go to the Laker game. Anyway, they didn't show him, so I assume he wasn't there. And then he looks at the camera. He's tearing up. And he says, fuck, man. Thank you, guys. And drops the mic. That was awesome. LeBron James. I wonder whether Kyrie Irving was watching. He was meeting the media, too, yesterday. God, Roger Goodell must be so furious, right? God, I just said right. Cut that, Coca. Are we live? Cut it. 4, 8, 6, 9. Roger Goodell can't be happy, can he? This going on during Super Bowl week. The number of people talking about the Super Bowl right now, 0. Amazing. They own this 2-week period, and certainly the week before. Today's Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're 4 nights away. And guess what the second topic of today's show is? Not the Super Bowl. Kyrie Irving reporting to Dallas. I'm not going to get into the fact that he deleted his apology on Instagram. I'm not going to fight with Coca about it. I'm not going to fight with any of you. I'm just going to ask you to consider this when you're discussing it today. If you leave an organization, and that's an organization that forced you to apologize for something that you did not want to apologize for, and you are only apologizing after you were told that by your lawyers and by your union that there's nothing they can do, you're not going to get paid. Posts an apology, gets traded from that organization, and then deletes the apology. Now, if you're going to say, hey, that's a coincidence, or you're going to say, hey, that's just cleaning up his social media, fine, that can be your opinion. My opinion is he deleted that on purpose. Why? Because he didn't want to apologize in the first place. So Kyrie shows up in Dallas. You've got two choices when you get traded. There really are. That's all you get. There's always the first media moment. The questions from the press are always the same when someone gets traded. How do you feel about being at your new team? And how do you feel about your old team? Those are the two questions. You got an opportunity to take the high road or the low road. Kyrie decided what he thought was the high road, I think is more of a middle to the low road. He said that he felt disrespected. And it made me angry. And I agree that I get angry because I used to be in management for a long, long time. So maybe that's my perspective more than a player's perspective. But if I'm Joe Tsai, and I know exactly what Kyrie had been doing over these years with the Nets, and I know what a disaster the big three were with the Nets, I'm pretty upset that he thinks that we disrespected him, because I'd be thinking that he disrespected us. You don't want to get the COVID vaccine? Okay. You want to post that you like a movie? Okay. Is that respectful, though? He said, I just want to be in places where I'm celebrated and not just tolerated, or just kind of dealt with in a way that doesn't make me feel respected. That's a fascinating quote, isn't it? Where he wants to be celebrated. Was anything more celebrated when they went to the Nets, when Durant and Irving and Harden went with the Nets as part of their big three? The talk around those three players? Celebrated, feted with great odds to win a championship, only until they didn't play together and didn't win together, that they went 13-3 in the games they all played together. Maybe that's what he means. Tolerated because we're supposed to tolerate the way people are off the court? No. If way you are off the court gets in the way of the way you are on the court, I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm going to tolerate anything you want off the court if you play and if we win. That is what players and fans sometimes forget. The front office's job is to win. That's it. And if you are doing something that stops you and us from winning, my job isn't to tolerate it on behalf of you, the fans, who want to win above all else. Do you want me to run a daycare center? Do you want me to run a place where the tail is wagging the dog, where there is no discipline, where there is no winning? Trick question. You shouldn't care if there's no discipline as long as they're winning. You shouldn't care if the tail's wagging the dog as long as they're winning. You've already made it clear as fans and media, you want owners to spend, but they're only good if they win. Otherwise, they're just dumb and they don't listen to the right people. Winning. Tolerate. He said there were times throughout this process when I was in Brooklyn where I felt very disrespected, and my talent. I work extremely hard at what I do. No one ever talks about my work ethic. I don't want to talk about your work ethic because you're not playing. Don't tell me about your work ethic when you're not playing games because you know that there's a mandate and that you're not being vaccinated or that you're forcing us to suspend you. It doesn't matter. I'd rather have Iverson looking at me and saying, practice? Practice? I don't need practice. You're talking about practice. That's sort of what Kyrie was saying. I want you to talk about practice. I want you to talk about what I do off the court. So he's now the Dallas Mavericks problem. So what's interesting is that he goes to a team where he's paired with Luka. He goes from a team that was in fourth place in the East to a team that's barely over 500. And he does one more parting shot before he dresses. He said there's a lot of disrespect that goes on with people's families with their names, and I'm just not worth it. So it's nothing personal against any of those guys, against the front office. I wish them well. I left them in fourth place. I did what I was supposed to do. I like that he said it's nothing personal against any of the guys. Is he talking about the owner? Is he talking about Sean Marks, Steve Nash? Maybe James Harden? Maybe Ben Simmons? I'm glad he wishes them well. But do you think that that's what players are supposed to do? Do you think that's why we sign free agents or we trade for players? Because what they're supposed to do is take care of their teammates, be selfless in their approach to leading? He was selfless in his approach to leading? No. You're supposed to win. The Brooklyn Nets experiment with this big three was an abject failure. So he heads to Dallas and he says, see you later, KD. Have fun discussing with Joe Tsai what you're going to do going forward. Have fun seeing if the Nets can win without me. I'm going to go here with Mark Cuban, and we're going to try to win it all, where we're now the fourth best likely to win. It's not going to happen. All right, Coca. Oh, I watched a movie with Anna Kendrick. We got to review. Oh, we got to take a break. All right, take a break. What commercial are you showing? We'll be right back.
The UEFA Champions League knockout phase, Europe's yearly do-or-die battle royale, full of Davids and Goliaths, where the dynamic duo of Messi and Mbappe team up to tear it up.
All three of the superstars on the score sheet.
And everyone from Holland,
have you seen anything like that?
To Harry is on the hunt for some hardware.
What a finish!
On this stage, winning is all that matters. The UEFA Champions League returns February 14th on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+.
It's almost like we had that planned. On this stage, winning is all that matters. That was the ad if you're watching the show live. That is not on purpose, by the way. So the movie I watched, I love when I go onto a streaming service and then it says new release or available to rent or buy right now. Anna Kendrick has a new movie out called Alice Darling. I wanted to talk about it for just 3 minutes here. She plays a character who is involved in a psychologically abusive relationship. And she has an anxiety issue where she's pulling her hair out and she is hurting herself very much mentally because of the way she's treated in a relationship. And the movie is about her trying to be saved by her two friends through some sort of intervention, through a realization that there is a way out. I wanted to talk about the feeling that people have sometimes when they feel like there's no way out. There are hotlines in place where you can call if you're feeling about taking your own life, and you see that in shows right now. Whenever there's any sort of suicidal ideation, there is a number you call. If you know anyone who has thoughts of suicide, if you know anyone who has a drug addiction, if you know anyone who's addicted to pills, or if you know anyone who's addicted to coke, or if you know anyone who's got any sort of bipolar, psychological disorder, there's phone numbers to call. And too often those phone calls are not used by people before it's too late. And the reason is the same as like when your parents say, call me if you're drunk and I'll pick you up, and you're 14 years old and you're like, I'll call anyone but them. I'm not going to call them. Some people call their parents, but most people don't. Some people call the hotlines, most people don't. That's why we all have to say something if we see something. That was started by Homeland Secretary Jay Johnson, and it was really based on terrorism. If you see something, say something. But it actually applies to everything in life. When you see something, you have to say something, and we have been brought up where recently no one wants to say anything because you're afraid of getting involved, because you're afraid of violence, you're afraid of, hey, I don't want to be bothered. I see someone yelling at someone, I see some sort of abuse happening, and I'm not even talking about if you're friends with a person, just walking down the street. Oh, keep going, don't interfere, don't interject, you don't know what's happening. There are people you can call the authorities, you can call the police. We have to try to protect each other because some people can't protect themselves. And Anna Kendrick, who's a wonderful actress, if you're looking for an Anna Kendrick sort of quadruple, go watch Pitch Perfect, go watch The Last 5 Years, Up in the Air, and Alice Darling. So when you're a friend of someone involved in a relationship like that, and you talk amongst your friends, and we've all been in this situation, haven't we, where you talk amongst your friends, that's not a good relationship for her or for him. They're not right. They're not happy. it looks like something's off. If you have that feeling, that means something is off. And we talk about staging interventions for our loved ones or for our friends and how often they succeed, how often they don't succeed. We don't want to do it because it's none of our business. We shouldn't do it. My opinion is you have to do it. If you see certain signs, and even if you're wrong, then be convinced that you're wrong. It's not like the GOAT debate. You're talking about someone's life. You're talking about someone's ability to live a life. Anna Kendrick, does she get saved by her friends or not? Watch the movie. It's called Alice, Darling. And think about in your own life the circumstances where these things happen, where you're put in a position where you can make a difference and you choose not to. You're put in a position where you can make a difference, you choose to, but then it doesn't matter because the outcome isn't what you wanted and you feel like you're a salmon swimming upstream, peeing in the wind. Why would I bother? It's not worth it. They don't care. They don't want help. It's just not true. It's they don't know how to get it, and they're afraid of what will happen if they do get it. When you've got an important decision to make, what do? What's your process? I just want you to think about that. I think about that all the time. I make decisions. We've done shows on decision making. How many decisions you make during the course of the day. Aaron Rodgers has a big decision to make. And let me make sure that I frame it exactly how I want to frame it. Coca, I'm going to look in the camera and I'm going to frame Aaron Rodgers' decision. Do I want to play football next year and get paid $60 million, or do I not? That's the decision. That's it. Aaron Rodgers went on his weekly Pat McAfee appearance, and it was awesome. It's a great show, the Pat McAfee Show. If you're looking for an extra show in addition to Le Batard and Nothing Personal, if you have time, you may want to do it. There's a bunch of great shows. Speaking of someone who's a free agent, right? Coca, make sure we get that in there. There's a lot of great shows there. Can I name them? If you're not watching Colin Cowherd, then you're not paying attention. If you're not watching Le Batard, then you're not paying attention. If you're not watching CBS, then you're not paying attention. 469. If you're not watching Fox, then you're not paying attention. If you're not listening to Omaha Podcast, then you're not paying attention. All right, so we have that, so we can cut all those in depending on what happens. All right, Coca? So he gets on there, Aaron Rodgers does, and he says, I've decided that I've got a decision to make, and in order for me to make it, I'm going dark. Remember one of my New Year's resolutions is to spend a weekend cut off from cell service? I'm going to put my phone down for a weekend. Well, Aaron Rodgers has made me look like a nothing. Aaron Rodgers is spending 4 days in the dark. He's going full Luca Grimes in Yellowstone. He's going to go be surrounded by nothingness. There's apparently a slot for food, like he's somehow on Alcatraz. But it's otherwise pitch black, no phones, no electronics, no nothing. I wonder whether he'll be naked, sitting there, cross-legged, pondering his life. Do I want $60 million? Do I not want $60 million? Do I try to do a buyout? Do I want to be on the Packers or do I not want to be on the Packers? I'm sort of hungry. My eyes will adjust to the light, but it's still pretty dark out. What time is it? I don't have a watch. There's no day, there's no night. I'll sleep when I'm tired. Will I dream about the Packers? Will I dream about my big decision? Have you ever seen someone more starved for attention than Aaron Rodgers? I couldn't give a tinker's rat's ass on whether or not he is going dark for 4 days and his decision-making process. What are you doing? Let me know. And I'm not talking about as a fan. I'm talking about with Green Bay. Just tell me. Because I'm under the working assumption that you want your $60 million. But I have to wait here for you to go through. Last year he did Anastasia. That's not what it's called, Coca. Come on, what's it called? It's called achanasia, euthanasia, whatever it was. He did some sort of drug. He was quick to say, no drugs this time, just darkness. And my view of that entire thing is the following. It doesn't matter. He said, I've got a pretty cool opportunity to do a little self-reflection in some isolation. And then after that, I feel like I'll be a lot closer to a final decision. Okay. Look at me, Louie. You could have just waited till after the Super Bowl. You didn't have to tell us you were going dark. You could have just gone dark. In this era where we all tell people what we're doing, and I'm as guilty as anyone. You're going to know when I'm doing my weekend without phones. You're going to know when I'm doing something that I think is cool or spectacular because it's what feeds ego of those of us who are in the public eye and on social media. We all do it, don't we? I'm fine with him having an ego and feeding his ego. I'm only asking how going dark helps him make a decision and why he's tying the two things together. Don't do that. You don't need to do it. Sitting in isolation, meditation, dealing with just thoughts. He claims he's going to have some hallucinations. Hell yeah. Do you know where you get hallucinations from? When you don't eat and it's in pitch black and all of your senses just go bad? I think that's pretty normal, right? You start getting a little weird. Does that happen when you've been up studying and you take no-dose or what's that, no jolt or jolt cola? Is that what you do now? What do kids do in college when they want to stay awake? I guess they just do Coke, right? No, that's not what I did. I did no-dose. It was that literally called NODOZ. Can you imagine? I don't think that's allowed anymore. All right, Aaron Rodgers, here's my prediction for you. You're going to go dark for 4 days. Then you're going to come back and say, hell yeah, I'm coming back because, wait for it, on a silver platter, I've seen the light. Nothing personal pick of the day. We're down to 17-21. The Lakers did not beat the Thunder by 7.5. LeBron did not go under 32.5 and did not go over 7.5 assists. So our plus 263 parlay from yesterday lost. So we're 17-21. 2 bets. Why are the Mavs getting 8 from the Clippers, Matt? Do we know? Isn't this Kyrie Irving's first game? Even if George and Leonard are playing, there's going to be this sort of halo effect that happens after a trade where somehow they work together so well and play well together, and it's going to look brilliant, and the Mavericks are going to beat the Clippers tonight, and all of a sudden it's going to be, wow, this is genius. Mark Cuban, you're the best. You're better than the rest. I'm taking the Mavs plus 8 versus the Clippers on the assumption that Irving and Luka are both playing. Now, it would be funny if they sat Luka for load management but played Irving. That can't be, can it? Does anyone know? Can we do a pick of the day where if both aren't playing that we say we're not doing the pick of the day? Coco will get back to me on that. All right, what else happened last night? I'm going to spend just a few minutes, if you don't mind, talking about the State of the Union. Don't turn it off. Keep my retention there. We only have a few minutes left. Stay with me. The State of the Union is when the president once a year, right, under our Constitution, will give the state of our union as in the United States of America. And Joe Biden walks in, and he talks in front of a divided Congress. You know the Republicans run the Congress, and then you've got the House, and then you've got Democrats have the Senate. You've got the Vice President, the new Speaker of the House, McCarthy. It's our democracy in action. No matter what your view is of any politician, you watch a State of the Union, whether it's Trump, whether it's Bush, whether it's Biden, whether it's Clinton, Obama, Reagan, doesn't matter. It's good to see what are people thinking about? What's on the agenda? I couldn't help watching the State of the Union last night and being a little sad. A little sad, not because there was booing going on. Not sad because people's choice of clothing was pretty bizarre. Not sad because there's a bunch of crazy right-wing people sitting in that room. Not sad because there's a bunch of crazy left-wing people sitting in that room. Not sad because there's debate. That's what it's for. There are debates on the House floor. There should be debates. Sad because the debates are not about positions anymore. The debates are about partisanship. I don't get that. I don't get that we're in a place where the Speaker of the House has to look around to decide when he can applaud and when he can't. Tell me who doesn't applaud when you're talking about getting rid of fentanyl and being harsher on drugs and opioids. Who doesn't applaud for that? If you have a different view of Roe v. Wade, okay. But fentanyl? What's the other view? What about affordable insulin or affordable prescription drugs? I'm just curious. Who's not in favor of that? You may not be in favor of how it gets paid for, and you want to find another way. But to not clap for the concept, it strikes me as strange. I don't agree with everything Joe Biden said by any stretch. Joe Biden showed me yesterday that he is so far left of center that it's staggering. But that doesn't make him wrong. It doesn't make him right. It doesn't make me want to applaud any less or any more given his personal views or the agenda that he wants, because I know that there's going to be lively debate. But there can't be that lively debate if people, before they go into the debate, know exactly what their position is going to be because it's their party position. Why is that the case? What makes it? Can you imagine being in your place of work and you're talking to your coworkers and you're talking about new ideas to raise revenue, and you go in with a preconceived notion of what you think is right, and you're not even willing to listen to what anyone says, and you're certainly not willing to be convinced? Does that make sense to you? Would you want the people, if you're a business owner, or if you were running a team, can you imagine hiring people who all they do is talk over each other, and all they do is they never listen to each other, and all they do is come to you with what their preconceived notion was of what you should do in a certain situation? How is that value added? I'd fire every one of those employees. You have employees there to make yourself better, to make your company more profitable, to think about things in ways that you're not thinking about them. For people who have an expertise in an area that you do not have an expertise in. That's the whole purpose of having employees. That's how you build a business. Knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know. It seems like in that chamber last night during the State of the Union, no one knew anything about anything except they were being watched about when to stand up, when not to stand up, when to boo, when not to boo. And then they can cry about the fact that in this democracy, it's an outrage that there's booing going on, and then make fun of people's clothing. Or they can cry about the fact that there is a absolute outrage. Who's going to pay for all these programs? The taxes are going to go up, even though Joe Biden specifically said if you're making under $400,000, your taxes aren't going to move. And then he talked about the richest people and the richest companies who don't pay taxes. How is that not offensive to you? Oh, because you're a shareholder of those companies? So you think your stock price is going to be impacted if these companies have to pay tax. What about the individuals then? I find it hard to believe, and it's true, what Joe Biden said, that there are billionaires who pay fewer taxes on their income than teachers and firefighters because they've got tax shelters. They've got way to shield income. They have ways to delay, loophole, put it into trusts, all sorts of things that firefighters and teachers can't do. So Joe Biden was actually correct in what he said. But that shouldn't be the point. The point is that we all need to keep going because the things that are said during a State of the Union, just like during presidential debates, are the same as 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. The issues are the same. Staggering. The inability to fix certain things. Maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe these issues will never be fixed. Then I just think we ought to be nicer to each other. If we're not going to fix an issue, what are you going to sit in a room and just fight? I found it a little disheartening. There's only one thing worse than being upset about the State of the Union, and it's not watching the State of the Union. All right. Wait to see is when I tell you something's going to happen. If it happens, I tell you. And I revisit it. If it doesn't happen, I revisit it. I like going through wait to sees. Like yesterday, I told you wait to see LeBron will break the record Thursday. That's a wait to see that's wrong. The wait to see I have for you today is about Alex Rodriguez. Yeah, that's out of left field, but if you're reading the papers today, you're going to read about it. Alex Rodriguez is trying to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves. Part of buying the Timberwolves is that he had to make certain payments at certain times. It's called a step transaction. We've talked about it on the show many times. There's a rumor that he missed a payment in December. He can't find the money, and there was an extension given till the end of March for his next $200 million payment with his partner, Josh Lore. Well, I've got a surprise for you. A, his name is Mark Lore, and B, they haven't missed any deadlines, and C, they are going to close this transaction. They will find the money because they bought the Timberwolves at a valuation that is lower than what it's worth now. It's like David Beckham in Miami, who had the option for MLS. Of course he's going to get the team because the option was what's called in the money. That means you can buy the Timberwolves and then 3 months later sell the Timberwolves and make a ton of money. A-Rod will be able to syndicate this along with his partner Mark Lore. They will find a way to get this deal done with Glenn Taylor, and he will be amongst the new owners of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I promise. Don't pay attention to what you're reading. The deal's not in jeopardy. Wait to see. The T-Wolves sale will happen. Why? It's just business. This is nothing personal.